Hello, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the show, Serving Nerve, where we talk about whatever we want, and today we're going to be going through more fat acceptance cringe compilations, Health at Every Size edition. So, without further ado, let's get into it. I also must preface, I do have my favorite beverage on hand, so that I don't reprimand my soul of its joys and pleasures. Let's get to it, and yeah, let's just do whatever this is today.
I would like to talk very quick about something that annoys me, and I'm going to call it thin-splaining. It's the idea that fat people, have no idea how to be thin, and that's why we're fat. So people, that we just don't understand health, and that's why we are the way that we are, so they want to add their tips, saying that it's not.
I just want to mention, thin-splaining, mansplaining, insaning, it's all the same game. Personally, I do agree that you shouldn't weaponize your position as an individual, somebody who's skinny, to be able to, act like, oh, it's all fat people who don't know how to lose weight or whatever. It does take some level of motivation. I know that a lot of people in the fat acceptance community, not all of them want to lose weight, and some of them do know how to lose weight. They can if they want to. Everybody has free will and the ability to choose what they want to do with their body when it comes to their body weight. The ability to lose and gain weight is completely up to you, especially in the westernized world where you have access to clean drinking water, food, etc. So I do agree, actually, with this person. A lot of people do know and or have the ability to lose weight. They just don't really want to. Or perhaps they have tried before and they failed and they don't have the motivation to keep trying. I mean, it's completely understandable, but I don't like the idea, and this is why this probably ended up on a cringe compilation, of the idea of saying, oh, it's thin-splaining. Whenever you throw a physical characteristic into the term explaining or being arrogant or ignorant, it doesn't really help your point. It really doesn't. You're better off saying, listen, there's a lot of people who are skinny out there who are ignorant towards, what I go through as a fat person, blah, blah, blah. But when we start weaponizing specific terms, particularly things like saying thin-splaining, fat-splaining, mansplaining, we start saying fat phobia, whatever we try to say, the best means of actually making your argument known is explaining your position, not by using these terms. It doesn't really help you that much. In fact, I think it actually does the opposite for a lot of these individuals and makes it harder for them to get their points across because people then automatically have an inherent bias. Oh, they're just gonna say I'm thin-splaining. What's the point of even listening to them? That's what I think.
Not appropriate to talk to your loved ones about their body or their weight gain or loss. And some people are like, what if I want to talk to my partner about it because health risks run in their family? It's their family. Who told you about the health risks? Do you think they don't know? Why do you need to talk to them about it?
This is something else that's kind of ridiculous. If you're going to spend your life with somebody, have a partner out there, and if they're living an unhealthy lifestyle, it is your business. It's your life too. You have a life with them. When it comes to family, friends, your boyfriend, your girlfriend, all these people are in your life. They play a role in your life. Hopefully you're important to them and they're important to you, so much so that you would actually have this conversation. There's nothing wrong with having that conversation and also showing concern for an obvious issue. It's the same thing if somebody's abusing narcotics, drinking excessively, performing self-abusive behavioral patterns. The obesity thing, the severe morbid obesity thing, and not eating healthily and not taking care of yourself does warrant an important conversation, because if you want to have a long-standing relationship with somebody, you have to have similar goals in regards to your health. If neither of you care, they probably don't value the relationship, at least in my opinion, as much as somebody who would care and bring up the point. This also does go for the opposite direction too. It's the same things if you're losing too much weight or you're overly restrictive with your diet or something like that. It's the same concern in that regard when it's compared to things like obesity. So I'm just saying, there is a concern there in every capacity. It's not just being obese. It's wanting to have a long, healthy relationship with somebody or have them in your life for a long time. And if they don't want to listen to you, that's their problem. But then the disassociation is kind of likely because it hurts when you see your loved ones hurting themselves.
I made a video where I said you can decline getting your weight taken at the doctor's office, and so many people jumped in to say, unless you have anesthesia, unless you're getting a prescription for medication, unless it's this, unless it's that. And I'm like, fat people know when it's medically necessary. Stop.
I actually do have to admit, that's understandable. If you don't want to get your weight taken at the doctor's office, it's up to you. It does add some ramifications to getting a full scope of your, health assessments, and also things like anesthesia and other crap like that. It's medically necessary. But I do know that in ED clinics and in this kind of mental health recovery type sense, people do not want to look at their body weight because it's going to degrade their mental health if they see fluctuations in weight, and it can, increase relapse rates for specific disorderly behaviors. So I can have my sympathies for that. I just think it's reasonable for people to as I haven't seen this woman's video talking about not weighing themselves at the doctor's office, I think it's pretty reasonable for people to make that comment and for you to also face any level of criticism that comes with such a commentary.
I made a video saying that there are no diseases exclusive to fat people, which there are absolutely not. And people want to say, it can actually be a risk factor for other diseases. Like we don't already know. People have literally been saying this shit to me since I was 7 years old. I know. I don't need your helpful input.
This is the problem, though. I have an issue with this because if you're going to be chronically online making these comments, making these TikToks, you have to understand that this is just what it is. Like, it's part of being online. It is unfortunate if people have been making these comments to you ever since you were a little kid, like family or anything like that, and you've been, like, hounded about your weight your whole life. It's terrible. It sucks. It's terrible. It sucks. A lot of us have been there, and it blows bubbles. But the other thing is, a lot of people in the health at every size community, and also what you are saying right now, does come off as pretty ignorant when you do consider the risk factors that obesity entails for things like heart disease, type 2 diabetes, and, whatever. It doesn't even matter. Certain forms of cancers, I guess. But, like, the reality is there is a level of concern that comes with being severely morbidly obese or morbidly obese. There is morbidity to your body weight. So it's a completely reasonable concern for people to have. And also, like, yeah, we can say, like, oh, well, it's a connotation or whatever. It's, it's not actually the cause. But at the end of the day, who gives a shit? Do you want to have a variable that's potentially deadly for your health? Like, it doesn't even matter what the variable is. When it comes to being too skinny or too fat, if people who have specific diseases are commonly associated with having specific extreme body weights, you probably want to avoid being at those extreme body weights. So I don't really understand what the argument is here. I guess it's just to rant, which we all do. But, I don't know, man. I just think that you're kind of barking up a tree that's endless. Like, on the internet, trying to debunk all the stuff that people tell you, it's just a disagreement. It's the basis of opinion at that point. I think that constantly combating, like, the comments people make of your beliefs is probably, like, a waste of time. You're better off just either disagreeing or agreeing, but that's just my opinion. When you're plus size, but not plus size, okay? They're all plus size. Like, what do we want plus size to be, all right? Plus size in general is kind of subjective. Like, you don't have a specific number of pounds, a height, or a waist to hip ratio that's, like, gonna categorize it. Those are all plus size models. Like, I just don't understand. Like, plus size is a very subjective term.
Commercialization and whitewashing of the body positivity movement is the worst thing that ever happened. This is gonna be a long one, so sit down. So the body positivity / fat liberation movement emerged from the Black LGBT community of the late...
I love how it just changes all the time. I'm so sorry that I'm going off, but I've always heard this, and tons of people in my comments sections have been trying to debunk this, and it just never ends. It never goes away. The one thing I have to argue with this is not even to try and disagree on the basis of, like, race and all that stuff. I don't really think about it, so pardon if I come off as a little bit ignorant. But, every 10 seconds I hear somebody in one of these compilations saying it's either got to do with race, or it's got to do with being gay, or, like, LGBT, or it's got to do with feminism, and then, everybody interchangeably uses these terms and then acts like that's the reason why fat acceptance started, and at the end of the day, it doesn't matter how it started. It's a completely different thing now. We have to look at the now, not the past, not the future. We can obviously look at projections, but you know what I mean. When it comes to this kind of thing, you don't want to be constantly focused on the past. It's going to keep you in the past. You want to focus on pushing your movement in the direction of the future with what you currently have now. I know this person's not just trying to, like, talk about only the past. I'm just saying, having a history lesson on where fat acceptance came from isn't going to change any of the perspectives people have when it comes to, like, what is happening around them in the current day and age in the Western world. I think it's a completely ineffective thing. I could be wrong, but I really just don't think it's going to help any of the arguments made when it comes to being, like, pro-haze, pro-fat acceptance. I just don't think it's going to help.
60s, early 70s. It existed on the fringes of mainstream / white society and culture for many years because in white culture, fat equals bad. Now in brown and black cultures, there's a little ambiguity here and there. I could talk about that in another video if you want me to. However, what we saw was fashion companies after the extremely toxic early 2000s, which I could talk about all day if you guys want me to, basically said, hey, you know what? I see you fat girls are buying clothes and I see you're willing to pay a premium for those clothing. So I'm going to get into the plus size fashion industry. However, what they did was they said, I'm only going to look at fat bodies I'm attracted to or I think other cisgender white people will be interested in. You know what those bodies are? Hourglass, pear-shaped, size 10 to 14 white or white adjacent bodies. Essentially, what happened was you're only looking at fat people through the lens of cisgender thin white people that run fashion, because fashion thrives on two things, babies: thinness and whiteness. So instead of the body positivity movement,
I don't know, I'm not trying to interrupt, I'm sorry, but don't you feel like it's kind of going in the opposite these days? And like, it doesn't really matter to me because I don't really care about conventional beauty anyways. You know, in general, I don't really see the same thing this person's seeing. Like, I don't really see the whitewashing. If anything, I'd see more inclusivity than ever. And also, going back into history and stuff, you're gonna have different body weights that are considered desirable based on the time. Like, if you have starvation as a super common thing in society, and the rich are the only ones that get to eat, a voluptuous form is gonna be considered much more enticing than a skinny, like, Twiggy-esque body in that time. I just think it kind of depends on what era we're looking at here. But, you know, this person has the right to go off. I'm just kind of rambling. I just don't really, like, agree, but I'm not here to really disagree with this kind of thing. It's all just kind of subjective and stupid.
Movement reflecting the hordes of fat, black, brown, white people, women, girls, boys, they, them, who come in a variety of shapes and sizes, hues, genders, and
I don't think this was much of a thing back in the day. This is the problem I have also, is like, I feel like everybody's looking at a different time frame. But the other thing is, like, I don't even know if they, them was considered a term until, like, the late 2010s or like the 2010s. Like, I don't even know anybody who knew about they, them, like, before what? Like, 2016? Like, 15 maybe? Like, dude, like, I don't know, man. This all just seems jumbled and mixed together. It just seems kind of jumbled and, like, mixed together, and, like, the timelines are just warped, and I don't know where we are anymore in history.
Ethnicities, it is now fully represented by people like Ashley Graham, a cisgendered size 12 or 14 white woman who is raking in millions of dollars at the expense of the body positivity movement. So what body positivity and plus size fashion have molded together to do is basically mirror the regular straight size fashion industry, creating another generation of fat girls who hate themselves, have a whole new host of insecurities for a totally different reason. I've said it before and I'll say it again. Thin white people and the fashion industry have ruined body positivity.
I'm not gonna lie, man, I don't really understand the idea of the fashion industry in general. If you haven't noticed, right now I'm wearing a t-shirt that's 10 times my size, boxer shorts, so I'm not really one to, you know, be good with the fashion industry. I'll give a little grace here, though, because the fashion industry in general always plays on some kind of trend, you know, being size 0, being size 12, having this dress, having this height, looking this way, or looking completely unique and ridiculous, just to appeal to looking unique and ridiculous. And there's always going to be something trending. It's going to change all the time based on the times. And I don't really think it matters, and I don't think people should put that much value into it, because that's kind of what composes the problem. I'm not trying to make the claim on this person that they are. I'm just saying that I don't think it's really that complex. The problem is, I hear everybody using a different, like, body positivity started here, and it's taken over by these people here, and then all of this happens here, and, like, this timeline actually started at this, you know, point in, like, history, and then all of a sudden they change it. It's like the early 2000s or something. That's my problem. It's like, I feel like everything's so, like, underexplained. It's a little inconsistent. But at the end of the day, I just don't really want people to care about this kind of thing. The beauty industry in general is here to just take your money, play on your insecurities, or enhance the looks and features of individuals who are societally acceptable enough to be able to look hot for people. That's at least my opinion. I don't know, though. I don't really pay attention to it. But saying that, I hope you all feel comfortable in your skin and not give a crap about, like, you know, what your body looks like and whatever. You should just always endeavor to be healthy, and that's the video. Sorry if it was a little bit lame-o kablamo. I didn't really know what I was expecting with this compilation, but the health at every size movement, I still would say, is not the most optimal of movements. I feel like with weight, you can have a little variability here. With body size, you can also have a little bit of variability there. But when it comes to being, like, morbidly obese, I think a lot of us agree that it's not healthy, the same way that being, you know, severely underweight would be not healthy. So, yeah. Tell me what you guys think in the comments below, and if you have any videos or topics that you want to send in, by all means do, and I will check them out, my people. But yeah, that was the video. I hope y'all enjoyed, and I will see you all next time. It has been lovely. Slater.